My former best friend went insane after I gave her a much-needed brutal reality check. She tried to ruin my wedding and get me fired, so I exposed her in a way that ruined her whole life. 3 days before my wedding, the venue coordinator called to confirm that I had canceled the ceremony. I had not. Someone had emailed from an address containing my full name, correctly answered 2 security questions, and requested that every vendor refund money to a new bank account. The coordinator became suspicious only because the person demanded the cancellation fee be waived within an hour. While I was on that call, my director summoned me to an emergency meeting. He had received documents suggesting I had shared confidential client research with an outside consultant. The consultant was my former best friend, Marissa. 6 months earlier, I had told Marissa that her failing career was not caused by jealous women, bad clients, or an unfair industry. It was failing because she lied, stole other people's work, and treated every friend like unpaid staff. She called that conversation abuse. What Marissa didn't know was that both attacks contained the same mistake. She had copied an outdated version of my client file, and the invisible tracking mark inside it connected the false complaint at my office to the fake cancellation sent to my wedding venue. By trying to destroy 2 parts of my life at once, Marissa finally created the evidence that destroyed the story she had been selling about herself for years. My name is Alexis. I'm 31, and I met Marissa when I was 17. We worked together at a movie theater during our final year of high school. She was loud, fearless, and funny in a way I desperately wanted to be. When a customer screamed at me over a sold-out show, Marissa stepped between us and told him that insulting a teenager would not create another seat. Afterward, she bought me fries and said I needed to stop apologizing for existing. For years, Marissa was the person who made me feel braver. We attended different colleges but spoke almost daily. She helped me survive my parents' divorce. I drove 6 hours when her first serious boyfriend left. We shared apartments twice, traveled together, and promised we would be in each other's weddings. Our friendship did not become unhealthy all at once. Marissa began by asking for favors I was happy to provide. I edited her resume. I photographed products for her first online store. I introduced her to people in marketing because that was the field where I worked. She always thanked me dramatically. Then the favor became part of the history she used to request the next one. By 28, I was a research manager at a mid-sized branding agency called Northline. Marissa called herself a creative strategy consultant. In reality, she moved between short contracts and relied heavily on friends to complete work after she had promised clients more than she could deliver. She was excellent at presenting. She could take a rough idea, describe it with confidence, and make people believe a sophisticated plan existed behind it. The problem was that someone else usually had to build that plan. At first, I admired her ability to sell herself. Eventually, I realized she was often selling pieces of other people. 2 years before my wedding, Marissa asked me to review a pitch for a local cosmetics company. Half the slides came from a presentation I had created for an unrelated client at Northline. I told her she could not use them. Marissa said the slides were only inspiration and removed our agency logo. I refused to help further. She won the contract anyway. I should have reported the situation then. I convinced myself that the material was general enough and that ending our friendship over slides would be dramatic. That decision taught Marissa I would protect the relationship even when she crossed professional boundaries. The pattern escalated. She asked me to join client calls without pay because she needed someone technical. She borrowed research language and later presented it as her own. If a project failed, she blamed the freelancer, the client, or the algorithm. Meanwhile, her online image became increasingly polished. Marissa posted from expensive restaurants and hotel lobbies, described herself as the founder of a thriving studio, and offered paid advice to new freelancers. Privately, she borrowed rent money from me 3 times. I became engaged to my fiancé, Owen, when I was 30. Marissa screamed louder than anyone when we announced it. She immediately declared herself maid of honor before I asked. I had planned to ask her, so I ignored the discomfort I felt. Wedding planning made her behavior harder to overlook. Marissa contacted vendors without permission, tried to replace the photographer with someone who would give her free promotional images, and announced a bachelorette trip costing nearly $2,000 per person. When two bridesmaids said they could not afford it, Marissa accused them of failing to prioritize me. I canceled the trip and arranged a simple weekend nearby. Marissa told everyone I had chosen the cheaper plan because Owen controlled my money. I confronted her privately. She cried and said she was trying to give me the wedding I deserved. I apologized for embarrassing her and kept her as maid of honor. That was my contribution to the disaster. I was so afraid of becoming the ungrateful friend that I repeatedly allowed her to define generosity as control. The brutal reality check happened 6 months before the wedding. Marissa had signed a $12,000 contract with a regional restaurant group. She promised customer interviews, competitive research, a brand strategy, and a launch plan within 5 weeks. She had no research staff and had budgeted almost nothing for freelancers. She asked me to help organize the project after work. What she meant was that she wanted me to conduct the research and write most of the strategy for free. I refused. Marissa reminded me that she had defended me in high school and supported me through my parents' divorce. She said real friendship was not transactional. I told her friendship was exactly what she had made transactional. Then I said the sentence that ended us. I told Marissa, "Your career is not failing because people are jealous of you. It is failing because you sell work you cannot do, take credit from people who can, and call them disloyal when they stop rescuing you." Marissa stared at me for several seconds. Then she asked whether Owen had convinced me to say that. I said Owen had nothing to do with it. Marissa told me I was threatened by her confidence because I had spent my life hiding behind employers. She said I would still be an anxious teenager without her. I answered that helping me 14 years earlier did not purchase permanent access to my labor. Marissa left my apartment and removed herself from the wedding party that night. She posted vague messages about outgrowing people who punished ambitious women. I did not respond publicly. The restaurant project collapsed 4 weeks later. The client requested a refund and posted a negative review, stating that promised research had never been delivered. Marissa told mutual friends I had deliberately withheld resources to humiliate her. Several friends pressured me to apologize. I showed them the messages where she demanded unpaid work. Most stopped defending her. 2 said I should have helped one final time because the contract was large enough to change her career. That logic was the trap. Every crisis was supposedly the last one before Marissa became successful enough not to need us. For 2 months, she went quiet. I assumed the friendship was over. Then small problems began. My florist received an email asking to change the color palette to red and gold. Our invitation printer received a revised guest list that removed Owen's divorced parents and added 12 names I did not recognize. Someone reported my wedding website as fraudulent. Each vendor contacted me before making changes, and nothing serious happened. I suspected Marissa, but the messages came from different addresses and contained no direct proof. Owen wanted us to send a formal warning. I hesitated because accusing her without evidence felt dangerous. We changed passwords, created verification codes with vendors, and told the coordinator that only phone confirmation from Owen or me should authorize changes. At work, my relationship with a director named Graham became tense. He asked why I had downloaded an archived research file for a hotel campaign. I had accessed it while building a training example, which was allowed, but the questions surprised me. 2 weeks later, an anonymous complaint accused me of providing confidential data to an outside consultant. Attached were screenshots of messages between Marissa and me, along with a copy of the hotel research. The screenshots were real but misleading. Years earlier, I had sent Marissa general advice about survey design. The complaint placed those messages beside the confidential file to make it appear that I had sent both together. Northline suspended my access while it investigated. Graham told me not to discuss the case with coworkers. I went home, terrified that my career would end because I had once trusted my closest friend. Owen asked whether Marissa had ever used my personal computer. She had. During our friendship, she had borrowed it at my apartment and helped design wedding materials on it. I had also shared sample files with her before I understood how freely she reused work. I gave the company investigators every device and message they requested. I admitted that Marissa had previously copied slides and that I had failed to report it. I expected to be fired for that omission even if the new accusation was false. Northline's document system placed a unique tracking identifier in exported research files. The hotel document attached to the complaint was not the version I had accessed during training. It was an older draft exported 18 months earlier for a vendor presentation. Only 5 people had received that draft. One was a freelance design vendor where Marissa had briefly worked. The identifier did not prove she personally sent the complaint, but it narrowed the source. 3 days before the wedding, the venue cancellation arrived. The sender answered security questions using information from an old planning spreadsheet Marissa had created while she was maid of honor. But she used the original refund amount listed before we added a tent and additional catering. That outdated amount appeared nowhere except the old spreadsheet stored on the same personal folder where Marissa had once saved the archived hotel draft. Our venue coordinator preserved the email and account information supplied for the refund. The destination belonged to a small event company registered by Marissa 2 months earlier. For the first time, we had a direct connection. I did not call her. Owen and I contacted an attorney and filed reports about the attempted diversion of the refund and the impersonation. Northline's investigators coordinated with our attorney because the same person appeared connected to the workplace complaint. Marissa reacted before anyone publicly accused her. She posted a 20-minute video claiming I was using my employer and wealthy fiancé to silence a former friend. She said I had stolen her business ideas, sabotaged the restaurant contract, and threatened her after she discovered I was leaking client data. The video received thousands of views. She displayed cropped messages and announced that she would release the full archive if I did not admit the truth. That threat became her biggest mistake. Several former clients contacted me after seeing the video. They had received work from Marissa containing inconsistent fonts, company names, and research methods. They wondered whether their projects had also used stolen material. With my attorney, I created a factual evidence package. It included dates, original files, invoices, messages requesting unpaid labor, the restaurant contract, the vendor distribution record for the hotel draft, and the venue refund information. We sent relevant portions only to Northline, law enforcement, affected clients, and Marissa's attorney. I did not publish her private messages online. I did not contact her landlord, boyfriend, or family. I corrected the people whose decisions had been manipulated by her claims. Northline cleared me of sharing the hotel file. I received a written warning for failing to report the earlier copied slides, which was fair. Graham apologized for treating the anonymous complaint as more credible than my work history. The company that had employed Marissa as a vendor terminated its relationship with her. 3 former clients demanded refunds. The restaurant group filed a civil claim. The bank froze the account connected to the attempted wedding refund while authorities reviewed it. Marissa's professional image collapsed because it had depended on clients never comparing notes. Her personal consequences followed, but I did not create them. The luxury apartment shown in her videos was leased partly through her business and depended on income she no longer had. She moved out after falling behind. Her boyfriend learned she had used his name as a reference on contracts without permission and ended the relationship. Several mutual friends stopped speaking to her after discovering their work in her portfolio. Marissa said I had ruined her whole life. In reality, exposure removed the separate walls that had allowed her to tell every person a different story. Our wedding took place as scheduled. We changed the vendor verification one final time and hired security because Marissa had sent messages suggesting she might attend. She did not appear. An unfamiliar delivery arrived during the reception containing a framed photograph of Marissa and me from high school. On the back, she had written that I would regret choosing a man and a job over the only person who truly knew me. I gave it to our attorney without showing guests. The day remained ours. 4 months later, Marissa accepted a civil settlement with the restaurant client and agreed not to use disputed portfolio materials. The criminal investigation into the attempted refund is ongoing, so I will not pretend she went to prison or lost everything overnight. She is living with a relative and working outside consulting. Through her attorney, she continues to deny sending the workplace complaint, although she admits creating the refund account as part of what she calls a plan to recover wedding expenses she believed I owed her. I never owed her wedding expenses. She had volunteered to pay a few deposits while maid of honor, and I reimbursed every documented amount. Therapy has forced me to acknowledge that Marissa was not a villain for all 14 years. She did defend me. She did sit beside me during my parents' divorce. Those memories are real. So are the years when gratitude became a debt she believed she could collect forever. I also had to face my own failure. I saw her copying work and stayed silent because I did not want conflict. I helped preserve the image that later made her accusations believable. Protecting a friend from consequences is not the same as helping her. People sometimes ask whether the brutal reality check caused her breakdown. I no longer accept that framing. The conversation did not make her impersonate me, redirect a wedding refund, or submit stolen research to my employer. It only told her that one source of labor and protection had ended. Marissa's life was not ruined by one evidence package. It was destabilized by the truth reaching people who had previously received separate lies. I still miss the girl who bought me fries after that customer yelled at me. But I no longer believe I owe the woman she became unlimited forgiveness because of who she was at 17. There are parts of our history that explain why I ignored the warning signs for so long. When we were 22, Marissa lost an internship after missing a major deadline. She told me her supervisor had deliberately withheld instructions. I stayed up all night helping her rebuild the assignment so she could appeal. Months later, I learned the instructions had been in her inbox for 2 weeks. Marissa said the detail did not matter because the supervisor should have reminded her. At 25, she borrowed $1,200 for rent. She repaid $200, then organized an expensive birthday dinner for herself. When I asked about the balance, Marissa said discussing debt during her birthday month was cruel. I waited another year and eventually told her to forget it. Each incident ended the same way. Marissa became hurt, I questioned my tone, and the original problem disappeared beneath the debate about whether I was compassionate. The wedding gave her access to more than vendor names. As maid of honor, she created a shared planning drive and volunteered to communicate with our coordinator. After she left the wedding party, I removed her access but did not realize she had copied the early planning spreadsheet. It contained deposit amounts, guest addresses, my mother's maiden name, and answers to simple verification questions vendors used at the time. 1 month before the venue cancellation, Marissa sent Owen a private message. She claimed I had confessed doubts about marrying him and was using the wedding to repair our relationship. Owen showed me immediately. The message quoted a conversation from years before I met him, when I said I feared becoming like my divorced parents. Marissa had converted an old fear into a current confession. Owen replied only that she should not contact him again. Marissa later showed mutual friends his response and said he was isolating me from anyone who knew the truth. That pattern appeared in the workplace complaint too. The screenshots were not invented. They were authentic fragments placed beside unrelated material. Marissa understood that a complete fabrication could be disproved. Her preferred weapon was a partial truth surrounded by a false timeline. During my suspension, I barely slept. I reviewed every favor, file, and password I had ever shared with her. I worried that Northline would contact all my clients before investigators checked the document identifier. My professional references came from the same company, and losing them could make the accusation follow me for years. Owen postponed his bachelor weekend to stay with me. I told him he should go because I did not want Marissa to damage another event. Owen said supporting me was his choice, and not another victory she could claim. My director, Graham, later admitted that Marissa's complaint had seemed persuasive because it included private details no stranger would know. Familiarity gave her credibility. That is what made the betrayal different from ordinary workplace sabotage. She knew which true details would make the false conclusion believable. The former clients who contacted us after her public video revealed a larger pattern. A fitness studio received a strategy containing market data from another city. A nonprofit discovered that its donor analysis used names belonging to a different organization. A jewelry designer found a campaign concept in Marissa's portfolio, even though Marissa had hired another freelancer to create it. No single client believed their experience justified legal action. Once their records were compared, the repeated substitutions could no longer be described as isolated mistakes. One freelancer named Celeste had worked for Marissa for nearly a year. Marissa promised payment after clients paid, then claimed clients were late. Celeste showed invoices proving the clients had paid months earlier. She had remained silent because Marissa threatened to tell the industry that Celeste violated deadlines. Celeste's evidence had nothing to do with me, my wedding, or Northline. That mattered. Marissa could describe me as a jealous former friend, but she could not explain why unrelated people had the same records. At our wedding, the framed high school photograph was delivered without a sender name. The venue camera showed a courier, not Marissa. Our attorney later confirmed she had ordered the delivery online. Technically, the photograph was not a threat. Emotionally, it was a reminder that she believed our history belonged to her and could be placed inside any room I tried to protect. I kept the photograph for several weeks. In therapy, I realized I was treating it like evidence that the friendship had once been real. I already knew it had been real. Real relationships can still become unsafe. I eventually removed the picture from the frame and stored it with old-school photographs, not with legal documents. I refused to let the ending rewrite every earlier memory, just as I refused to let the earlier memories excuse the ending. Marissa's boyfriend, Julian, contacted Owen once after their breakup. He apologized for believing I was controlling and said Marissa had used his name as a financial reference on 3 contracts. When clients began demanding refunds, they contacted him. He realized she had represented their relationship as a business partnership without his consent. I did not tell Julian to leave her. I did not need to. The same conduct that affected clients had entered their relationship. Her apartment was also less simple than the online story suggested. Marissa leased it through the consulting company and deducted part of the cost as a business expense. When accounts were frozen and clients stopped paying, she could not maintain the rent. She told followers I had made her homeless. She did not mention declining a room offered by her sister because it was not attractive enough for her content. That detail helped me stop feeling responsible for every consequence. Even after exposure, Marissa continued choosing image over stability. Northline's warning remains in my file for not reporting the first copied presentation. I did not challenge it. The warning reminds me that loyalty does not excuse failing to protect other people's work. Our agency also changed how vendor drafts are distributed and how anonymous complaints are evaluated. Private screenshots can support an investigation, but they are no longer treated as a complete timeline without source verification. 6 months after the wedding, one mutual friend asked whether I would meet Marissa in mediation. Marissa wanted me to state publicly that she had not intended physical harm and that business pressure affected her judgment. I declined. Her intent was not the only issue, and I would not become the source of a new reputation statement. I do not celebrate that she lost clients, a relationship, and an apartment. I celebrate that she no longer has access to my life, or the ability to make separate lies look like separate misunderstandings. The reality check I gave her was brutal, because it named a pattern we had both spent years disguising. Her retaliation did not prove I was cruel. It proved how much she depended on nobody naming it. So, did I go too far by giving every affected person the evidence after my former best friend tried to destroy my wedding and career? Or was exposing the complete pattern the only way to stop her from turning my silence into proof that she was innocent?